I wouldn't even mind if he goes into like an alternate universe and meets white Nick Fury. You know this?
By the way, so when I was prepping this, and I already wrote this to you, I forgot, I purged this from my mind like a traumatic experience. And then when I was looking up like images, this popped up, and I was like, God damn it! If I have to remember this, all of you are gonna have to remember this nightmare.
By this point, I'm sure a lot of people have already heard. Not gonna even try to mess with this. Nick Fury, made very popular by Sam Jackson. Am I drunk right now? Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson.
Sean Connery trying to say his name.
Made popular by Sam Jackson. Getting his own series. You can see right here, this is Variety. Samuel L. Jackson to play Nick Fury in new Marvel Disney Plus series. It's exclusive from them. And to which Nick Fury himself responded, it's about time. Everybody getting on TV show. He even made an announcement. Like Disney's really making a play saying that, hey, look, if you unsubscribe, hurry up and get your ass back over here because we're about to deliver on that promise of everything we said for all the Marvel stuff out there, including this one right here.
It's twilight time. Out of
Wanda and Vision. Oh, we have 5 paths.
Even the B team out there getting their own shows on Disney Plus. Meanwhile, Samuel Jackson saying, you know what? They wouldn't have their shows. They wouldn't even have their movies. If it weren't for me, I'm the that started it all.
Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
You know, he truly is one of the most badass characters of all time. Broke into Iron Man's house. Could have killed him. Didn't take no superpowers. Didn't take no genius. And on top of that, he kicked off a $1 billion universe. Ground Zero started right there. And it's like, all right, well, what took so long to get the show going? What? You didn't even get your own movie spinoff. I don't know what took so long, but I know I'm glad that it's here. I would tell you this before I pass it on, because I'm very excited about what they could do with this show for him. Well, I'll tell you what, let me pass it to you and let's get into a discussion about the possibilities of what I believe will truly be a badass Nick Fury series.
Very few times do we see a character that is so married to the actor and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think most people know the Ultimate Universe kind of used him as a standard bearer. So when they cast him, it was like, oh, it's incredible. So it's like, for me, I think number one, we're in good hands because he's doing it. He's going to be a producer on it as well. I trust him that he cares about the character enough not to let it get too off the rails, but also the people who are running it. My big question is like, which direction are they going to go? I know I've become a really bad Marvel fan lately. I'm sorry, but the last time we saw him, wasn't he like on a Skrull ship, like light years and light years away from Earth?
Yeah, no, he was. You know, look, big spoiler for anybody out there, but if anybody has seen Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, you know that the whole thing was that the Skrulls were actually Nick Fury and what's her name? Maria Hill or something?
Yeah, Maria Hill, there we go.
Yeah, but you know, we knew that they were Skrulls, and the whole time that they were down on Earth fronting, Samuel Jackson was up in space, chilling, trying to take a vacation, trying to actually, you know, from the many times that he saved Earth, just trying to get a little Nick Fury time. And they
R&R, man.
R&R, and they still with him up in space, man. So that's the last time we saw him. So you know what? You're right. This could go in some many directions. I mean, we could be getting some stories, some future stories, or the further adventures of Nick Fury, or we could be going back and doing some backstories. I just hope that they don't do something stupid like show he lost his eye from a cat scratch.
That was a close call, huh, Goosey? Huh? Those bad guys still in there somewhere.
Out my face. You know, actually, I don't blame that cat for doing that, man. Cats don't like that, even alien cats. But you know, you saw that eye patch, man. The eye patch was iconic for Nick Fury. We always thought he lost it, you know, fighting some supervillain or some alien or something, and then it turns out it was nothing but he was just with a cat too hard.
Motherfucking.
You okay?
Yeah. It's just a scratch. No.
He's like, no, that eye's gone, man. Television used to be the place where you would send something where you either didn't have the money to do a big budget thing or something that it was a throwaway thing. Disney has the money to do some of the things that we've seen these characters do on the big screen. They have the money to do the things that show them in the ways that we've always wanted to see them. This scene right here, this is one of the few times where we've seen Nick Fury, where everybody thought, well, what does this guy do? What is he, what's his place here? Is he just here to boss people around, or he's truly a badass? And it turns out, guy's truly a badass, man.
To integrity, 19%.
Now! This will be, I think Disney will be able to pull this off. Of course, they won't have the budget that they do for the movies on the big screen, but I think that this will come closer than anything else television has done.
I bet you these seasons will be about $100 million, because if you're Disney, you're going to pay that much money for a 2-hour film. Why wouldn't you get 6 episodes, 8 episodes out of it? Something that is going to drive subscribers. Subscribers are going to pay for all the influx of these new shows anyway. So, my bigger question is kind of the same question you have. I'm way more interested in everything that happened before the Avengers as it pertains to Nick Fury. I don't want them to explain anything else. The mystery is always much more interesting than whatever answer they can give you.
Yeah.
But, like comics wise, like this guy was around since after World War II. You know what I mean? Like he was in the Cold War. He's in Vietnam. He did all of these things. Been many comic books that have touched that. And yet I think the problem is that two things. They want to keep continuity, right? They want to still build the overall larger universe that they're trying to do. So I don't think we're going to take too many adventures backwards. And on top of that, Sam Jackson, the aging thing wasn't super, super distracting for Captain Marvel, but I'm not sure I would want to watch a whole series of that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't know if I'd want to watch a whole series of a de-aged Samuel Jackson either. But it's important to talk about things like budget and whatnot, because, and plus this being under one roof. The cool thing about Disney Plus and bringing all these characters into the fold now is that they're doing something that they weren't able to do, and it was very disjointed when it came to television. They tried their best to actually go in and connect some of the TV universe parts of Marvel to the movie universe parts, and it just didn't work out that well, man. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is directly tied to the MCU. And in the beginning, they started out with making cameos here and there and letting you know, like, oh yeah, it is all definitely connected.
It only took you 6 days to take a completely renovated piece of state-of-the-art machinery and turn it into scrap? Got a bar. Really nice one.
I could watch a whole series of Nick Fury taking his belt off and whooping man. Cause he really is like everybody's daddy, man. Everybody's black daddy. If they called it Nick Fury, everyone's black daddy, I would understand. But they've been very sloppy with doing this, man. They've done these cameos on a budget. They've done them quickly. The stories, they didn't make sense anymore. You even start to wonder, are these characters really connected anymore? And it was all because of business. It was all because TV was under a different executive.
Different divisions.
Division, and television was under another division. Kevin Feige, and we all know, and all that kind of stuff. Now these stories can seem a little bit tighter. They seem like they can make sense. They can do what they want to do with teasing stories that go off and expand into other characters' stories and series. So let's just say that we want to do some stuff where he's in space, like we saw at the end of Far From Home. That's exciting to me too, man. I would like to see some of the adventures of what he's done while he's off Earth. Some of the stuff that he's done with setting up maybe things like, I'm gonna get real nerdy now, setting up things like the Eternals, whatever their names are.
Right, because there needs to be some kind of heavy lifting there. They haven't done a really good job kind of laying those seeds yet. But I think you're more than likely right. I think what they have to do, again, is because they want to keep it within the universe that they've already built.
I wouldn't even mind if he goes into like an alternate universe and meets white Nick Fury.
By the way, so when I was prepping this, and I already wrote this to you, I forgot, I purged this from my mind like a traumatic experience. And then when I was looking up like images, this popped up, and I was like, God damn it, if I have to remember this, all of you are going to have to remember this nightmare.
Oh yeah. When David Hasselhoff played Nick Fury. See, I remember this, man. I remember them advertising this on television or something. I never saw it, but I remember them talking about it, and I didn't watch it because, well, frankly, it looked like bullshit.
Nick Fury? Well, here's the short.
Nick Fury. So is she German or does she have a lisp? Because she sounded
she's
British
South
before.
African, maybe. She's a couple different places. She hits a couple of that bingo card.
Shit, she traveled the world with that accent. A lot of you are very young, and I don't know if you remember what TV was like when I was growing up. I don't know if this was like it for you when you were coming up, because I know in the 90s, man, and even seeping into the 2000s, television did not have that budget, man. Television was seen as the place that you go to. You go there to do dramas. You go there to do kid shows and whatnot, but you don't go there to do big spectacle entertainment because it just did not have you couldn't afford the same even tech that it took to make big spectacle entertainment. And that's not the same today. Digital, it took its time, but it changed all that. So now, if for certain things, there really is a blurred line between television and big tentpole movies. And I have a point right here for this because it's going to go into our other conversation. I'm wondering, do you think that studios are sinking more and more money into television, especially for big budget superhero and sci-fi things, because they don't know what's going to happen with theaters in a few years?
Honestly, I don't think it started that way, but I think it's one of those things where now they're probably like, oh, this is great that we're putting so much money into this format because I've heard some more buzz. It's really coming up. People are really worried about the state of theaters because it looks like more theaters are going to be closing. And, what's that going to do for the industry? Yeah. I just think it has a lot to do with they're investing in both. My thing is, I think the reason that TV didn't work before when they tried to pull this stuff off was because they didn't have the budgets, like you said, and they didn't have the same actors doing it. I think a lot of the budget goes to securing those people. They don't want to do something that looks shitty. You know what I mean? They want to do something that looks of the same standard. So now I think it might just be a really fortuitous circumstance that's happened. They're like, oh, this is great because we are terrified of the state of the industry. But I'm not sure that's the sole thing. Either way, they've positioned themselves in a pretty good spot, wouldn't you say? Yeah,
I think so too. I think it's probably all working out for the best. I think they were going that way anyway. They're talking about doing a She-Hulk show, and chances are, with who they cast, what was her name?
It's Tatiana. What's her name? Maslany? I can't say it right.
Maslany. Yeah, man. She's probably gonna have this moment in there where she actually has to transform into the Hulk. If anybody's seen the chick that's playing the Hulk, she's a tiny girl. I'm not tiny, but she definitely ain't no bodybuilder. She's no Hulk. And as we all know, the Hulk is, well, they call him the Hulk for a reason. He's giant. He's huge. He's 9 feet, 11 feet tall. Back in the day on television, if you want to do the Hulk, this is what you got. You got a man painted green who threw a teddy bear across a field. That's what you had back in the day. And
well, they spent all the budget having two Bruce Banners, right? Or he's David Banner in that. But they have an actor who plays David Banner, and then they have Lou Ferrigno play the Hulk. Man, that's where the whole budget went.
Yeah, and by the way, the bear's friendly as that bear did not have a mean bone in his body. Bear just playing around. Look at this. It's not even a full-grown bear. That's a teenage bear.
That bear was raised in captivity and been socialized. It has no idea why it's being punched right now. It's just very confused.
It is very confused. Look at the bear. He's like, oh, what'd I do?
Why?
Should have thought we were just playing, man. That's stock footage, bear. I bet. That's not the same bear we just saw. Bear just as floppy as when he threw his ass over there. It's a big ass teddy bear. But people, that's what you had back in the day when you were watching television. They couldn't afford to do what they're doing now. I know we've seen that clip before, but we have come a long way from a painted green man throwing a teddy bear. That's and it's amazing to see that. And so now I'm thinking that since the budget is there, since we've reached this point right now, what is going to be the difference? Besides just a few $1 million more, what's going to be the difference between the entertainment that we see on television versus what we see on on the screen, especially now that you can tell deeper stories with the same budgets that you had with the movies. Because with television, you don't have to stick to that formula of origin, introduction, action, chase, big explosion, climax. Let's admit it, people. Marvel follows that all the time. I mean, I love Marvel, but that is their structure for every fucking thing that they do. Some of the best things they do. That's it. Imagine being able to see, with these huge budgets, these stories being told that you don't have to do. You know, that's why I think something like, I made fun of it earlier, but I really do think that it's going to be great to see what they do with WandaVision.
Married when? Damn it, why?
Be funny, that was Samuel Jackson disguised as a white man. Listen to me. That is something that they probably would not do in the movie because it would be a little riskier to bring in, you know, more diverse group of audience to come in and see that. But they can do that on television with a higher budget than their average TV show. And they can take more risk, they can tell more creative stories, and they can do it with the characters without having to confine them to that structure, that formula that we always see, which is why it's more than just a Samuel Jackson show that we're talking about. We're talking about the impact that this will have on some of the other stuff that they can do now. If they can do a Nick Fury show, think of what they could do now with maybe making Ant-Man a deeper character, you know, like a comedy show where it's like it's not always following the Marvel formula.
Yeah, and I also think it's going to have an effect across the industry, right? Because like you mentioned that a lot of this is in the speculation that maybe theaters won't be up to snuff for a year or two or maybe ever. We'll find out. Yeah. But what it does is it drives people's subscriptions to Disney Plus. People are going to see the same quality stuff that they'll see on the big screen, but with the pacing of the comic books, which, by the way, is the best case scenario for me. Like, I cannot tell you how excited I am for Marvel's TV side and not so much for their movie side at this point. But across the, you're going to see Amazon's making news. We'll talk about this in a minute. HBO Max made news in July. They're making more news as well. And you see that it's starting to become a little bit of an arms race again, right? About who can stock up with these big enough properties.
This relates to another piece of news that was announced. Maybe it was today, I think. If not, it was late last night. So everybody's looking forward to James Gunn's version of the Suicide Squad. His humor is so twisted, and chances are this is going to be rated R. I was already taking bets on who was going to die in this. Like Nathan Fillion. You know, he loves Nathan Fillion, puts him in everything. That'll be a great joke if he's dead. Weasel, that character is weird. He'll live. Oh, John Cena, yeah, that big gone. You know, just because he's a big star, he's not gonna make it, man. That'll be the joke. That, he's so huge. You think that he would get his own series and whatnot. Nah, that fool is dead. Turns out I was probably absolutely wrong. Maybe, I don't know. He could die, or he could just continue on. Either way, they found some kind of way to give this man his own series coming to a streaming service near you. And I hope it's called that. Fuck, it's Peacemaker. I hope that's the name of the show. But he's getting a spinoff on HBO Max. And this is going to be either, it could be the adventures of Peacemaker before he got into the Suicide Squad, or he made it out and we have one big spoiler alert here where he lived and he's going on to further adventures on the smaller screen.
I think the most interesting thing about this, though, is that James Gunn is not just signing on to executive produce. He's writing all the episodes, directing at least half of them.
Really?
So we're getting like, oh, shit, it's not just a cool idea with good intellectual property. You're getting the guy who made the movie, who's made the Guardians films, who's become like, a go-to guy for when you have a weird property and you still want to make it palatable for everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's great. HBO Max is going to spare no expense. And the character is not known by a lot of people, and I barely know him, but what I know about him I think is hysterical, which he's called Peacemaker. And his whole bit, the whole premise of his character is that he's a pacifist who resorts to violence in order to bring about pacifism.
Yeah.
Like, that's his whole contradictory thing. It's the most perfect character for a James Gunn screenplay or series. And, dude, I'm very excited about it just based on that and having a lot of faith in his work. I mean, what about you?
Well, you know what? I think that's funny because I heard it described a different way. I heard it described a different way when we watched the behind the scenes of Suicide Squad, and I heard it from John Cena's mouth himself.
Be like a douchey Captain America.
There you go. I'm one of the people who really likes John Cena. I don't watch wrestling. I know he's not the best actor out there. It's just, I don't know, something about the guy where he does seem to have a good sense of humor about himself.
He commits. Whatever the project is, he commits. He's going to give you some silliness, and I think that it's about getting the right people. No one knew about Dave Bautista being like a fucking superstar until I think he ended up in those Guardians movies.
Yep.
And to me, like, James Gunn was the guy to bring that out of him. And I've seen him in other things where he's not being funny. I thought he was really wonderful in Blade Runner 2049 in that opening scene.
Yeah.
It just takes the right person to find and discover those talents. I think we all know John Cena is really talented. He's been around the block for a minute, but I really think this is going to be the time where we all kind of like see him for like, oh shit, he's great. Like, he can really be used as a hired gun to do something really wonderful.
You know, we're talking about now. You know, I believe that this is something that's kind of it's sort of a trade-off for what we're having here. We're getting more streaming services, and everybody's kind of getting this fatigue of having to pay for so many goddamn subscriptions out there, man. There's so many that we're paying for. Even video games are going into subscription services now. I was trying to read a comic book the other night, and because I have a digital platform, and they asked
Comixology.
me Comixology, man, and there some things are great. You know, you can check out certain comics like a library, and you know, then turn it back in when you're done. And then some stuff you want to read it, you got to subscribe not only to the platform, I believe, but you got to subscribe to that series of books. And it's just like, or maybe it's just a series of books, but either way, it's another subscription. So I think the trade-off of that, at least when it comes to streaming services, you know, you have Disney Plus that, you know, now they're competing with Disney Plus and Disney with the deep pockets. They got people that they got to compete with, and people got to compete with them, like HBO Max. So what are you getting now? You're getting people putting more money into these properties that people want to see, because now it's competition out there. And I guess this is one of the cases where competition is healthy for the consumer. You know, it's not just because they want to, you know, entertain us because they like the characters that much. No, they want to make sure that the money is showing right there too, so that you can keep your subscription and not go over to Disney Plus or subscribe to everything.
What makes it really interesting is that, like the other show that they're doing, right? This Peacemaker one is really good, but the Gotham PD show that they're doing, what they're doing is they're taking a well-established sandbox, but giving you something completely new. Like, even if it's just a procedural cops and robbers thing, doing that within the prism of Batman, Gotham notwithstanding, is not something that we've really seen before. And so I think that that's what they're doing, is like they have a lot of goodwill, because, you know, same thing with Wandavision. You could never do that in the movies. You just couldn't. But because we are familiar with the characters already, we're inherently familiar with the universe. It allows us to trust the audience a little bit more about what they can and won't accept.
That is true. This whole thing is good for also kind of expanding a genre, man. You know, everybody was getting superhero fatigue. Everybody was talking about superheroes are, you know, they're chasing all of the dramas and the more mature movies out of theaters, and people like, no, pandemic is doing that, you know, how it is now. So, you know, some people are getting their wish. Maybe there's not as many superhero things in the theaters because there's hardly any of that in there. But the upside of that is that with superhero stuff, okay, now they're like, oh, well, now we got all these superhero things on television. Now we got to compete there. Well, I think that it's not as much direct competition as it was in theaters. As you know, we got the whole thing is, man, I would love to watch all these TV shows, but it's just too much stuff to watch. So there's something out there for everybody. You can't say that, you know, you're being pushed out. But the other thing is, let's just say you were getting jaded on superhero stuff. You know, bringing this stuff to streaming services has really sort of, as we just talked about, and we've said this over and over again, has really expanded what they can do. We were talking about one of the best things out there right now, as far as a superhero property goes, is The Boys.
We're in. Of course we're in.
You know, very violent, very sexual. Some places is downright disgusting. No big spoilers here, but I saw a man get choked out with a sexual organ, you know, the other night on this. I don't think this is going to be It probably should, but I don't think it's going to be winning any Emmys anytime soon because people are still a little bit timid about this. But it is taking some daring week after week that you don't see usually in superhero movies, because on television they can do a little bit more. Hence what we just saw in Watchmen. Watchmen was able to take on some more mature subject matter, not in this case with sex and violence, but more with the approach to racist history, in racism in today's world. You know, it's able to do those things. We don't see that a lot, and these risks are really paying off. And in this case, it's really paying off with The Boys. The Boys, which is adapted straight from a comic, and adapted very well, because I read some of that comic and didn't like everything that I saw, and they actually took a lot of those things out and made it better. Well, whole thing is paid off. They've just announced that they're going to be doing a spinoff. Now, I got some feelings about this, and I talked about this last night with Christopher Juicy Herman. I'm very happy to see that it's successful enough to where Amazon, which produces this, they can now go off and do a little bit more. Just right here in this section that Christian sent, it says Amazon's superhero series The Boys is getting a spinoff, and it's going to be in superhero college. The project, written by The Boys executive producer Craig Rosenberg, had been in the works for a while. It is being fast-tracked in light of the success of the original series' second season, which marked the most watched global launch of an Amazon original series ever. Now, happy about that. Even though I said this last night, this sounds like X-Men with horny kids in there. X-Men with more sex. X-Men with much more violence, which could be a good thing. And the producers who are behind this, that's another good sign of faith too. You got Seth Rogen here. The Vought cinematic universe is expanding. And of course, Vought is the big corporate villain in the series, if you've seen it. And Eric Kripke, he's real excited. That's right. He says, seriously, I'm grateful to all of you for making hashtag The Boys such a huge success. I'm having the time of my life. So I can't thank you enough. Much, much more to come. So it feels good knowing that the original producers are behind this. You'd think that they would carry this in the right direction. I still have my reservations, though, but I'm going to pass it on to Christian to continue the discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So look, I want to point out that I'm glad Eric Kripke seems like he's having a fun. When I watch the show, it definitely seems like he's having fun making it. I like the show. I tell you all the time that comic gets progressively worse, so I'm really scared of that. But so far, you're right. They've taken all these other things out, and they've been able to make it their own, and it's made the show much better than the comics so far, in my opinion. Yeah. Here's the difference between all the other things we've talked about so far and The Boys, which is that, again, a previously established sandbox world. We're all familiar with the incompetence of the Gotham PD. So having a movie about the corruption and incompetence of that, or a TV show, really is interesting. It's interesting subject matter. We already know Wanda and Vision. Like, we know those characters. My problem with this is that even though I like the Mother show, I think expanding it just to do what you nailed, like a hornier X-Men, all right, Animal House meets The Boys. I'm glad you like that. My problem with it, though, is that I think it runs the risk of being much closer to like kind of what Walking Dead did with their spinoffs rather than anything that they're going to do with The Boys. Yep. And what I mean by that, because I do feel like I need to clarify, was that when Fear the Walking Dead came out, you could like it or dislike it, whatever, but it looked distinct. It had its own cinematography, and it was bright pastel colors, and then it looked in stark contrast to what we got with The Walking Dead. Inherently, though, as that show went on, by virtue of it being a show about the zombie apocalypse and like the people dying, it started to become the Walking Dead show. The new Walking Dead spinoff looks like a Walking Dead show. It looks too similar that it's not going to necessarily set itself apart. And that's my biggest fear about this. I don't really think it's going to be a huge attention grabber because what is it? It's the boys in college? Like, what's the hook?
We said this last night, too, when we were talking about it. It felt like how the Walking Dead is, man. It's successful, so what do? They don't naturally spin stuff off. It feels forced. You know, even some of the best episodes, maybe of Fear the Walking Dead, or best seasons, feels like, well, we just had to do this because we need more Walking Dead, because more Walking Dead means more money. That is my biggest fear of what they'll do with this. You know, now if somebody sat in a room and it came from a genuine idea, people having some beers, some drinks, and be like, you know, it'd be funny if we did this and it took place in college. I could see this potential and that potential. Okay, cool. But if this is a big push by Amazon to make this happen because they want more of this because they just got the numbers in, That's my biggest fear too. You know, I think as it goes on, you might see more money put into it, and even that is something that makes me kind of nervous. We're talking about how Marvel is so cool with having a lot of money put into their shows, so you can get, you know, great shootouts in the middle of the street, or get great, you know, set pieces and whatnot. That's cool. We've already expected that from these things because they've already set that standard. You know, looking at something like The Boys and wanting to do a spinoff and possibly putting even more money into it, that kind of makes me nervous, because television really does have its charm in that we're not restrained by a budget. We actually work around it, and that is why we actually tell these more creative stories, because we have to work around the format of television. So I don't want to see something like The Boys, man, something that is, you know, out there and taking the biggest risk and telling the most outrageous stories. I don't want to see that get hindered by them starting to Game of Thrones it, or, you know, Marvel it or anything like that.
Of the three, which one has you the most excited? And I feel like it's Nick Fury based on our conversation, but surprise me.
Well, you know, no, you're right, man. I mean, the thing I got from this is that, one, this is very exciting to see that not only, take it out the whole superhero context, it's very exciting to see streaming grow. And it's very interesting to see what's going to happen now with the way TV is growing. And as we said, you know, the resources is being thrown to it, as opposed to theaters now that are suffering. You know, how is this going to actually affect theaters, and how is it going to shape theaters? And now that all this stuff is going to television, is it a sign that we are going to get more closings? Because we've been going back and forth. We've been going back and forth and talking about how, okay, our theater's going to thrive. And then we see them like bring Tenet back. I'm like, oh, well, maybe people are going back. And then now we see how they're suffering again, and maybe they are closing. And, you know, we don't know where it's going to go. But I think with these streaming services, you're now going to see things like, you know, Disney. You're going to see DC pushing theaters into being in a position of not necessarily dying, but they're going to be pushed into a position of, okay, we got to shut a lot of theaters down, and you're going to see more big movies being treated as event films, and the theaters are not going to be just chains anymore where you got these teenagers who don't give a shit working there. You're going to have these entertainment villas where you go there and they're going to have a nice restaurant. They're going to have a place where maybe the kids can play. They're going to have a coffee house there. Who knows what other activities they'll have there, and the movie will be a part of it. And you're going to go there, and you're probably going to, it's going to be more of a night out than just, I'm just here to get some popcorn and sit in the air conditioning. You know, that's what you're going to see. And I think this trend is going to force it to be like that.
The distinction between TV and film has been blurring for a long time. I think it's just going to be completely severed, and we're not going to be able to really tell the difference.
That is true. That is true. I'm very excited, man. I'm very excited.